Welcome to All This Math. This is Professor Parker, and today we're going to do some work with circle geometry. Circle geometry. Specifically, we're going to do some work with circumference of a circle and using the information on the circumference of a circle to find the area of a circle. Now, a couple things up front. What is the circumference? The circumference of a circle is the length around a circle. And what I should have did was drew a picture of a circle up here. That would have been nice. All right, so that's our circle, right? It's got a center right there. And the circumference is actually the perimeter. Circumference is the perimeter. So when we deal with rectangles, squares, triangles, trapezoids, other types of parallelograms, we deal with the perimeter. The perimeter is the length around the outer edges of that shape. So a circle has a perimeter also, but it's called the circumference. So because circles are so important, circles kind of, they got a little buzz. So what circles do is they have their own specific name for their perimeter. So when you think of circumference, just think of perimeter of the circle. All right. Now, we know what the circumference of the circle is. In this case, it is 36 pi. Now, this letter right here looks a little weird. It's called pi. It's represented by a number, 3.14, which actually goes on and on and on forever. A lot of decimal places, but we're just going to use pi. Now, that's significant because sometimes we use the letter pi to represent, right, that value. Sometimes we'll switch it up and we'll convert it to the number 3.14. If we ever have a problem or are given a problem where we're given the letter pi, then that's kind of a hint that our final answer, based on whatever we're trying to figure out, should also have the letter pi in it. All right, so this is what we do. We're trying to find the area. So the first thing you got to think about is, well, what's the formula for the area of a circle? So we write that down. We say area equals pi r squared. All right, area equals pi r squared. Now, in order to find the area, I need to know pi. We know what pi is. Pi is 3.14 regardless. And we need to know the radius. This problem does not give me the radius explicitly. It implicitly gives it to me, but it doesn't explicitly give me the radius. What it does give me is the circumference. And what I can do is I can figure out the radius from what I know about the circumference. Because check this out. What's the formula for a circumference? One of the formulas for a circumference, because there's two formulas for the circumference that basically represent the same information. But we got C equals 2 pi r. All right? So we can say this is the formula for the circumference. So what I could do is I could take the information about the circumference that I know, plug it into the circumference formula, and then solve for r. Now watch what I do. I'm going to replace this capital C, which stands for the word circumference, with what the circumference is, 36 pi. So that becomes 36 pi. This equal sign, I bring that down. This 2, I bring that down. This pi, I bring that down. This r, I bring that down. Now what I'm going to do is use what I know about algebra to solve for r. That's what I'm about to do. Now check me out. I want to get r by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by this 2 pi. I could treat 2 pi like it's one number because it's really just 2 times 3.14, but I could treat it like it's one number. So in order to get rid of the 2 pi, I need to do the opposite operation from what the 2 pi is doing. The 2 pi is adjacent to the r, so that means the 2 pi is being multiplied by r. So that means I need to do the opposite of multiplication if I want to get rid of 2 pi on that side of the equation. So watch this. I'm going to divide over here by 2 pi. And whatever I do on the right-hand side of the equation, I need to also do on the left-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to divide over here by 2 pi. So this becomes 1, because again, anytime you divide something by itself, it always equals 1. So this becomes 1 times r, which is, of course, just r. Now over here, I'm going to have 36 divided by 2, which is 18, because the 2 turns into a 1. This turns into an 18. And what's pi divided by pi? I just told you anytime you divide something by itself, that is equal to 1. So this pi and this pi become 1s. So now I'm left with 18 times 1, which is 18, divided by 1 times 1 is just 18. So that means that the radius of this circle, right, is 18. Now, I know what the radius is. So now that I know what my radius is, now I'm going to figure out what the area is. See? Sometimes you got to go through a couple steps to get to the final result. All right? So now, my area formula is area equals pi times r squared. So area is going to be pi times 18 squared. All right? Now, again, we're not going to use 3.14 because in the original problem we were given an expression that included the letter pi in it. So if it includes the letter pi, then our final answer is going to include the letter pi. So we don't need to convert this to 3.14. We just leave it as the letter pi, which represents a number anyway. Now, A equals 18 squared times pi, or pi times 18 squared, because we know the whole commutative property thing. The order don't matter when we're multiplying numbers, right? Now, we need to memorize our perfect squares. I highly recommend you memorize your perfect squares from 1 times 1 up to at least 25 times 25. All right? So you could do a problem like this without having to pull a calculator out. I know that 18 squared is 324. I know that because back in the day when I was in like 7th grade, that was one of our assignments. We had to do that. 7th grade in Algebra 1 class, we had to memorize all the perfect squares. And I've known them ever since. All right? So now, this becomes 324 times pi. So the way we write it is we don't write pi 324. Switch the order around. Sometimes you treat pi like a variable, even though it's not a variable. You know what it is, but it's a letter. So we write 324 pi. And that, my friends, is the area of this circle right here. All right, but look what we had to do. We knew the circumference, and you'll see a lot of problems like this. So understand how to do these problems, because sometimes you'll be given a circumference, and then you're asked to find the area. So what you got to do is find the radius, because you need the radius to find the area. So then you got to go use the circumference formula, break that down, figure out what the radius is, right? Sometimes you might be given the area, and then from the area, you got to figure out what the circumference is. So you would basically do the same thing. You would basically solve for the radius. Either way, you got to have the radius. All right? So that's that. This is just a little bit of circle geometry, all right, which requires us to understand what the formula for the area of a circle is, and also what the formula for the circumference of a circle is, which really is just the perimeter around a circle. All right. Now, please like the video, share the video, like the page, subscribe to the page, tell some people about it. And always remember, as always, there's all this math all around you.